Yeah.
So I think, in terms of directing on set, like that is navigating the no for me. It's more like, and this is, like in so many of the cases, I don't feel like it's you're navigating a no. I feel like I always want to try to be avoiding the no. Like,
Hmm.
how do I, like, every instance is you put myself in the other person's shoes.
What if reframing your approach could help you avoid a rejection altogether? Today, I'm sitting down with my friend and mentor, Paul Kiely, a seasoned commercial and entertainment creative whose career spans memorable projects for iconic brands like Amazon, GM, Microsoft, US Army, PepsiCo, and Yum Brands. From his early days working at MTV to casting and directing, as a voiceover actor, Paul's journey is packed with lessons on navigating rejection, embracing humor, and reaching his full potential by just being himself. Paul's story is a masterclass in persistence and adaptability. His ability to not only navigate, but to avoid the no and embrace serendipity proves that rejection isn't the end. It's just a stepping stone to something better. Get ready for some laughter, insight, and inspiration as Paul Kiely shares his journey of turning hurdles into victories on this episode of Navigating No. Paul, here you are. You're in front of me. I have not seen you for at least a year from Seattle times, right?
Something like that. I pulled up the how long has it been since you've seen Blue Stiley calendar, and I
Yes.
kept going back month after month after, and I finally just got so dizzy I had to stop. So it's been a while. Yeah.
It has been a while. Well, we've known each other for a while too.
Mhm.
And we actually met on a commercial for LifeWise, the insurance, I believe was our first commercial. Was that not?
No,
Was it?
no, it was not. It was
Ooh,
a. It
this is the
was.
goods. Here we go. I
It
can't wait.
was Samsung commercial,
Okay.
right? And we dressed you up. You were in the 50s, then the 60s, then the 70s, then the 80s, then the 90s. And it was a long form 2-minute ad for a new Samsung product of the future that debuted at CES. And to my surprise, when I got to the Samsung booth at CES that year, um, our commercial was playing on a loop on 2,500 flat panels that they had everywhere around their booth. And they had not, they had a lot of content to choose from, and we had no idea it was going to be ours.
And
So,
people still don't recognize me
and
and that many screens.
and we had not negotiated like a residuals payment or anything like that because we just thought it was going to be like this single use thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Great.
sounds
I
good.
will call my agent as soon as we're done,
But
Paul. Thanks for throwing
good luck.
throwing the
Good
money.
luck. Good luck with good luck with the South Koreans.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, and you were the producer on that, or were you the director for that one?
Both.
You were both. You
Both.
are a man of many talents, and I
I
love
was
it.
the producer, director, and the writer. But the funny thing was, I was on a shoot before that with this actress, and I was talking to her about that project coming up, and she said, I know this great guy. You should talk to him. He might be able to pull off all those looks. He's been a model, and he's just getting into acting, and that's how we were connected. She had simply given me your name, and
No way. See
yeah,
that I'm learning all these new things. Okay.
it was Cindy. You remember Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had done
Oh.
a baseball ad or something like a Mariners ad, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently there was a lot of downtime, and you kept the entire crew entertained. Was the story I got about that?
No way. Me
Yeah,
entertaining, being in the limelight, I do not see it at all.
yeah. And I was like, well, this sounds great because it's it was a really interesting shoot. I mean, all the makeup, clothing changes, hairstyles, you
Well, and
know.
all of it was based off of the view from a television, right? And so it's
Correct.
like seeing this family do
Yeah,
different things on stage, or not on stage, but in their living room. And depending on the decade, it was different. And one of my favorite ones was when I was eating a banana, and I had to eat that banana like at least 20 times and then change the station every single time.
we should have talked to you about how to eat a banana for camera, so you're not actually eating. Yeah, because I remember you telling me like, I mean, I think I'm gonna be sick, and I'm like,
Uh,
you're not really eating the banana, are you? And you're like, yeah, it's like this is my sixth banana, and I'm like, oh my god, no, that's yeah,
Oh,
that,
what movie? It was Groundhog Day with Bill Murray when he had to eat that puffed donut. And I think he did it like 60 times. He kept putting it in his mouth every single time. You get tired of that. Well, I love that what you were a force to be reckoned with right away. Like I know that when as a model or an actor, when you get on set, sometimes a lot of times the producer or the director is too busy to get to know or to introduce themselves. And you were so amiable right off the top, but it's like you could josh and you could like throw lines out, and it was just like you were so open and easy to get along with that it was like this instant connection that I had with you. And I was like, man, this guy is, I want to be a friend with. Like it was immediate. And you really hit me with that because you were not only my boss on set, but it was like you were like a mentor to me, and you were somebody that I could look up to and I could learn a lot from. And I to this day, I am grateful for that. So thank you very much.
well, you're welcome. And I think that's, it's an interesting point. And, I do hear from a lot of the people that we used to work with, and they're like, oh, what, like, we were on set on this other thing and we were all wishing like the director was an asshole. And we were hoping like, God, it was like, if only we could get like, if Kiely were directing. And I said, well, tell everybody, don't tell me. So, but the thing was, because I had started out, as like a disc jockey, which led to hosting, and then I was on the air at MTV, right, as a host and a presenter, in the news department and on different shows. So I was aware of how uncomfortable it can be for
Yeah.
actors. Like it's just really bad. You don't need to add to the pain. And my other feeling was that casting is so much of it. Like you've got to be really, really careful with your casting. And if you've got the right people and you've done a good job, well, then you can have fun on the set because you shouldn't really, there shouldn't be a lot of directing that you need to do. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, there is a bit, and this does go to sort of, there are a lot of navigating no's in there, right? So
Sure. Oh, I want to hit on these.
the casting process is, you can see a lot of people in a very short period of time. So you're handing out a lot of no's,
Hmm.
and
You're the deliverer of the bad
you are
news.
the deliverer of the bad news.
Hmm.
And the buck,
Welcome to the HR industry, right?
right? So buck stops with you. You are handing out the no's, and often it's not for any, it's not a good reason, and it's nothing anybody should ever take personally. I mean, sometimes you have something in your mind's eye and you're just trying to shuffle through till you find it. Other times, somebody brings something to it and you go, aha, oh my God.
I
That,
didn't
you know
know that.
what? There we go. That
Hmm.
that is the thing, right? And other times you just meet somebody and you do get along with them and you think, let's see what magic we can find in the set. But I think that, usually it's the pre, you've got to have a very definite idea. And you've also got to be really good with people in the sense of like letting them know you will see those actors again, and just because they're not right for one thing doesn't mean they're not going to be right for the next thing you do. And if you were a jerk,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to be a jerk, and nobody wants actors to walk around and that guy was a jerk.
Hmm.
Well, actually, maybe some directors and producers, I feel that kind of they do, like they
Hmm.
want to cultivate this for like an odd, I'm the boss and I'm never wrong.
Yeah, I'm the bad boy, or I'm the hardest one to work with, but that's why my
And
work is so great.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
inevitably, I think, that's a recipe for failure, but maybe that's another podcast entirely. But, then you get on set, right? And, you don't want to be, you don't want to be discouraging or negative. It's, you always need to keep things, yes, positive and actionable.
Yeah.
So I think, in terms of directing on set, like that is the navigating the no for me. It's more like, and this is, like in so many of the cases, I don't feel like it's you're navigating a no. I feel like I always want to try to be avoiding the no. Like,
Hmm.
how do I, like, every instance is you put myself in the other person's shoes. And that goes for, working with the actors on set, or in casting, but also, it's on the client side as well. When you're
Sure.
pitching the idea, you're coming up with an idea and you love it and they don't like it and you're getting a no. It's like, how do I avoid that no? Like, what are they thinking about? What's keeping this client up at night in terms of the problem that they're having? What do they want to what do they want to hear in terms of you understanding their business, solving their problem, and bringing something to that commercial or to the, campaign if it's a bigger project.
100%. Like when I speak and if I go speak corporate, one of the biggest things is like finding out what the problem is that they are experiencing and what I can do to solve that problem. And sometimes I'm not the right person for it. Like I can't solve an AI problem. Like that's just not my forte, right? So it's like it being able to solve a problem. And when I worked for Starbucks, it was always like, what causes your heartburn? And I love that every industry seems to have that. And when you deal with clients or employees or customers, it's like, what is their pain point and how can you best solve that? What value are you bringing? And sometimes you don't want to hear that no. And sometimes you do have to deliver that no. I want to go back really quick because one of the biggest things is back in the day when you used to have couch castings, for example, or cattle calls, when you would have hundreds of people come to a casting, which they don't really do anymore. Everything's online. You would stand in line with all of your competition and you'd be looking at each other like, well, that guy's younger than me, so I've got this, or this guy isn't as tan as I am, or he has a scar on his face, so I've got this. But when I walk in, one of the biggest things that I remember hearing was that when the casting director looks at you, it's out of your hands. You can show up to be your best, but really it's out of your control. And so whatever that casting director tells you, you can't take it personally, because I could go up to you and be like, "Hey, my name is Blue Stiley," and you could go, "This guy reminds me of my brother." And I hate my brother, and I am not giving this guy the job. Or you could say, this guy reminds me of my brother, and my brother, let's work with Blue, right? And it's like, I have no control over that. It's not in my hands. And so you have to deliver that, but you already have in your mind. And I think that's a really good point to take in, because whether people are going into a job interview, it's like people don't care about you. They care about themselves. What their bottom line is, what they're picturing and such. And is that something that I'm sure you've delivered more no's in castings than you ever took yes, because you can only have one person as the main character, or the hero of the commercial, right?
Well, yeah, I suppose it's entirely possible that there's like a protagonist, and the commercials tend to be because you're what you're doing is going to take place in 30 seconds or a minute. That, I mean, often, it's sort of more of I think that a lot of the things that I wind up writing, which I tend to be funnier things, I tend to gravitate towards using humor. And I think they're more ensemble-ish. Yeah. Rarely is, and, unless I've got like Rowan Atkinson to do Mr. Bean, I'm probably not like, it's not going to be like one guy,
Sure, 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 sure.
um, you know, um, although if you have the name of that guy with the scar in his face, I need someone. No. So, but
Is his name Scarface or
yeah, right.
Al Pacino, I
Yeah.
think.
So I yeah, but you do hand out a lot of no's, and in spite of the fact that, I still think, you do that initial sort online. I still like to bring people in, and I like to not exclude somebody. If I'm on the fence with like what I'm seeing online,
Yeah.
I will bring them in. You've got to meet them in person, but
But
definitely.
that encourages me as a model or an actor or an interviewer for a new job. It's like there still is a chance. You can't just give up. It's like there is a chance.
Yeah, well, you can't give up because the nature of the business is, whether you're up for a directing job or you're up for an acting job. I mean, you won't quit when you get a no. I mean, you don't go home and find a new career. No, you go. I pitch 200 more ideas the later that in that same year. You go on 100 or more auditions,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't just pack it in. The rejection is constant, and you need a thick skin, and you need to keep going on
It's
it.
part of the game. It is the business. Being rejected is the business. And
It
it
is.
really only takes one yes. Right? It really does. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't understand that. If you nab a SAG commercial, that's a good payout. And it only takes one of those, right? And it's like if you can get 4 or 5 of them, you're a happy camper. But it's like it really only takes one yes. And so you do get rejected more than you hear the yeses.
Yeah, so true. It's funny when I was barely um, outside of my teenage years. I
This is
not even
last year?
yeah, like I don't know, what was it, the 70s? So anyway, so I booked a Minute Maid uh, lemonade ad, which turned into they used my voice on the tag for the national spot. And this was probably around 1982. And I still get checks in the mail.
Do you really?
Yeah. I mean, think about that. I mean, that is
Residuals. I love it.
frightening, I mean, it'll play, I'll get a check in the mail, and I'm like, what the heck? Are you kidding me? And they're like, oh no, like the whole lemonade campaign just went
Reran.
just like pushed out through all of Brazil, 40 years later. Like, are you kidding me? Like, like, and they're like, they still like got that little audio clip,
Oh my God.
of me saying Minute Made a Better Lemonade. Although I said it much
We
better now.
still remember it. I love it.
Well,
What is
it was one of those like, in a world, it's like Minute Made a Better Lemonade. And they
way
still
to
use
turn
it.
lemons into lemonade?
Like,
You do have a
unbelievable.
great voice, Paul. You
So
do.
there were a bunch of video games I did for LucasArts Entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I did those, around that same period of time. And they'll put like, they'll use it in the background as some new thing. Like, and I think, they're doing it because it's funny. Like, we've got all these audio files, so they've got me saying something like, ha ha ha, the chickens, right? And then they put it, in like some new game, like, yeah. And so you find, like, you'll get a check will show up for like $12, from Lucas.
Do you need 2 signatures for a check that big?
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes it's tempting just to throw it in a frame. Like, some of them are so preposterous. You've forgotten you did them. But, I was represented, by an agency out of Los Angeles that was really big at the time. They got gobbled up by Creative Artists Agency,
Mhm.
so they're not the same anymore. But they still manage everything. I mean, they have a massive bookkeeping department that keeps all that stuff straight.
That's crazy.
It kills me that that sort of thing still happens. It's
Yeah.
nuts. Yeah.
But that's a blessing, right? Do you, and I don't, and it could be one of your commercials or something that you've shot or you've produced or directed, but do you have a favorite commercial of all time? Like just something that stands out to you that you're like, oh my God, I love that commercial. What's your favorite commercial?
All the ones we never made. We had so many hilarious ideas for things that
Yeah.
were like were crazy that that where we got the hard no from the client. And I mean, in some cases, I would go back. You know, I would foist that idea on them like 3 or 4 more times. Like I would tell them, like, really, no, it's the right thing to do. Like you really you got to do this. Um, I think some of the stuff we came up with for that, which was just so funny, but I mean, being in Seattle,
Hmm.
and the agency I was with is, had a lot of tech clients, and it was, not
As
not
open
they
to
just not the
pushing the
most
boundaries a
amenable,
little
not
bit.
the most, it's like we want, there's kind of people that tell you we want something really different, really edgy, really out there, really fun, and you give them that, they're like, it's a little too edgy for us. It's like,
Mhm.
so you don't really you want the same thing that everybody else does, and that's the other thing we hear a lot from tech companies here is they would say, we want we want something like, have you seen that new Apple app? And you'd say, well, your budget is, $100,000 for this local regional thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And Apple's budget was probably $5 million. So you're literally comparing apples to oranges. Like you're not you're not
Unintended.
you're
Yeah.
not you're not getting it. That's not going to be happening for you.
People
So
don't realize how expensive it is to do commercials. I mean, you talk about like the manpower behind everything and the talent and all the writing prior to it and then the marketing of it. I mean, it's huge.
it's like I kind of forget, say the people that work on them with us are the ones that are often like, they'll say, God, we had such a great time. And I'll be like, oh, I forgot about that. But you're right. That
Yeah.
was great. That was good. That was
I,
really good.
I love reminiscing with other people, and you're like, "Oh, do you remember when you did this?" Or "Do you remember?" And it's like, "How did I forget that?" Because I do remember that. Like,
Right.
I'm like, "Wow, how did we? That was so influential on me." And so I hear you on that for sure. Um, is there I remember you told me a story, and I don't know if you want to tell me about this one, but it was about the donkey. And I would love for you to share that story about was it on Kimmel that there was a donkey?
Yeah, that was not good. It was on Leno.
It was on Leno. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like there was some.
You got to tell the story because the audience has no context on this, and this is one of my favorite things because you spent time trying to find it.
Well, I don't. The problem with this is, and it was kind of funny, and
Can you tell it? I guess is the question.
well, the issue was is that the donkey was sick. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, yeah.
But that's not the only time we had a donkey. Actually, we had a donkey in another ad, and we we were trying to get the donkey in the building for the shoot, and the donkey got loose from the handler in the parking garage and got up on top of somebody's car. Did you ever hear about this stuff?
No,
Yeah,
this
this is a
isn't
little
even the
bit
one I was
this is a little
talking
bit
about.
more PG a donkey story.
Okay.
Yeah, so the donkey was jumping from car to roof to car and smashing, Oh, and that was terrible. And then that was the client had to, you know, we had insurance, of course. You're carrying, up to $3 million worth of, you know, insurance for that,
Car
yeah,
insurance.
for that kind of damage. You got $3 million worth, but the client actually wound up, somebody would not leave it alone. And I think that the client actually wound up having to give somebody like 20 grand out of their own pocket because of this donkey. I don't know if you ever saw it. That was for Ericsson's cell phone. I don't think you were in any of those. We did
I
it.
wasn't in the Ericssons. No.
Yeah.
We didn't have cell phones back then.
Yeah, but the donkey on the Leno show, the donkey was just sick, and while it was waiting to go on, they were trying to get it onto, out of the green room, and it was moving into the hallway, and it started going backwards, and it just sprayed like literally like a fire hose. I mean, a fire hose of diarrhea. It just sprayed across the wall, up onto like it was going, and people were screaming, running out of the way. I mean, that was just, and a friend of mine had sent me a video of it because one of the people from the show was there, and I don't know what they were going to do. They were going to edit it into the show, like the donkey, coming out to stage or what. I don't even know what the plan was. But of course, and I had that video clip, but I don't know where it went. You lose things. I got like a couple hundred drives, and things get uploaded to somewhere or another, and things just get lost. But that donkey footage, I mean, it's one of those things you kind of got to see it to believe just how horrible it was, and just how many gallons are in, like, the donkey colon. And it was just astonishing. And it just wasn't stopping, and it was going everywhere, and people were screaming and running and slipping, and it was just a total disaster. I mean, that was,
that gets me the giggles.
That was just not a story I thought I would be telling today.
That has nothing to do with navigating. No, right?
Yeah.
But how do you navigate diarrhea from a donkey? To change gears on this one? What your journey? You have done so much. And I make fun of the fact that when I'm introduced on stage, it's like Blue Stiley's done X, Y, and Z, and it's like, oh my gosh, that list is long. But it's like you have done so much in your life. Along your journey, what is one of your hardest no's that you've ever heard that really hit home to you?
That's you'd think I maybe would have studied this question in advance and had something prepared. I think I avoided a lot of, I got some no's, but when I packed it up, went from California, moved to New York City, which was the surprise to everybody I met in New York City, is they all seemed to want to move to California. So they couldn't understand like why someone from California would go east. But I thought, New York, it was a lot of fun. I visited, and I thought I should live here for a while. And then I wound up staying for, a little over 10 years. But I don't think I appreciated how hard it is to get a job there. I would just go to places and like just ask them, if I could start working. They didn't even know if there were jobs. It's just going to like ABC and CBS and NBC and production companies and studios. And I went to Rolling Stone and actually got a job because the receptionist was also from San Francisco. And she said, yeah, we've got like a couple openings. Like, I'll get one for you, and then we can hang out and talk about San Francisco, like in the break room. So I got that job, and then it was the same thing. It was like just through like not because I was like super aggressively
knocking down doors.
Yeah, well, I was kind of knocking down doors, but like through naivete, not through like it's empowered to succeed at any cost. Like, and then I will do this, and then I will achieve this step on the ladder. I was just like, well, that sounds fun.
You were
and
kind of getting on the train, and wherever it took you, it was going to take you.
now it's the same thing. MTV was just had been around a short while when I got there. So, and so I got hired there um, as a news person to write news. And of course, I had no experience writing news. I mean, it was just preposterous that I should.
Did you have any imposter syndrome at all? Like, did you like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, how am I going to write? Did you reach out to other people?
I might
This is
have.
way
I
before
might
the
have.
internet. You couldn't
Yeah, I
Google
might have
all of that.
worried about it for 5 minutes or so, but as soon as I met like the other people in the newsroom, I was like, "Holy shit!" I was worried about this. It's like as bad as I am, God, I'm not as unqualified as they are. Like, holy cow! Like, I'll be just fine. Like I can easily fake this until I make this. Like, well, they can't even fake. They're terrible at faking. Like, oh my god, it was like they had hired. When I got there, a bunch of the people there, it looked like they'd been hired off of is that record store that John Cusack worked
Yeah,
at? That
Empire
movie?
Records
No, not
or
Empire Records,
High
but the
Fidelity. It wasn't High
High
Fidelity.
Fidelity.
Okay,
High
okay.
Fidelity. It's like those guys there, arguing about some sort of like ridiculous minutiae of some stupid crap. And one of my first stories that I grabbed because I was like, "Oh, this will be great," is Madonna wore the pointed metal bra. And I was like, I grabbed a camera crew and I headed right the hell out. I did the pointed metal bra story. And of course, it was huge. It blew up. I mean, like the networks were calling for our footage. And so that was good. And I got a few of those. I mean, I seem to have a pretty good nose for stuff that might be controversial, weird, or, zeitgeisty. So that actually wound up working out. And then I got one of the senior producers come down from the one of the he's director, senior producer. And he'd come down from the set and he had brought a bottle of booze with him, and it must have been like 1 in the afternoon. He said, "Who wants to do shots?" And nobody did because they were wussies. And I was like, "I'll do shots with you, man." So we did. And then he's like, after a few shots, he's like, "You would be perfect for this on air." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right, I'll do it." So, I went into the studio when I was doing like just a really short segment.
Yeah.
And as I'm doing it, one of the lights, have I told you this story before?
No.
One of the lights is catching the ceiling on fire. And so I'm sitting there and I'm reading off the prompter and I'm doing this segment. And at the end, I'm supposed to toss to somebody and, and then do a wrap up and then say, we'll be back with da 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 da, discussing da da da. And then I said, that is if we're able to put out the ceiling fire in the studio right now. And of course, one of his camera guys like spins around and like things on flames. And so, the head of MTV was like, "What is going on down there? Who is this guy?" And like, well, like he's pointing out like a ceiling fire, like on national television, because you were actually, and they fixed this, you were actually going out live for a while there, they were running it like an actual, you were sitting around while music was on. I mean, you weren't filming all your breaks back to back to back to back, which is eventually what it moved to, right? But you were actually like a DJ sitting around while the videos played, and we're back. So it was pretty funny. So then I became known as like the ceiling fire guy, and it was like, well, he can think on his feet, shove him out into the street, have them go interact with people, and they hadn't been doing that before. So then I'm out there with the mic, and this is sort of funny actually. Actually, here in my
a whole lot of directions, but here we go.
Office, I kept my cube.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is my actual mic.
That's cube. What you took around and put as a microphone in front of everybody.
Yeah. So I kept my mic cube because they were hard to get. And so at the end, I was like, well, I'm not giving my mic cube
yeah, that's mine.
Forget that. Make another one. They were such cheapskates too. It's like you were buying your own pens and paper.
I keep trying to get our producer Brendan to get us like a navigating no one right here, but he's failed at me on this one.
You should. You need him. You need some
so that if I ever stop this podcast, I'm going to take that home with me.
Yeah. So they started putting me out in the street, and if you take a mic out and a camera crew on the streets in New York, like you get some stuff. So one of the first things that happened to me is I'm down in the village and I'm asking people about some kind of new music. I've forgotten exactly what the stupid thing was I was asking people about. And Paulina Porzakova is headed towards me. And I'm like, oh my God, well, I know who that is. And then I'm like, oh my God, she's with her boyfriend. I know who he is. So I'm like, I'm totally going to get them. So I stop them, and he keeps going. I'll just go on the record. The guy's a jerk. So Rick Ocasek was such a jerk. And so she stops and talks with me. And then finally he comes over and goes, let's get out of here. We don't have to like stop, said something, something like busted up. But I had this great interview with her just live on the streets of New York. So all these like serendipities, and she could not have been hotter at the time. I mean, she was cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit, it was exactly the right time to, and that's totally unplanned. It's just one of those things that happen. So I avoided no's, I navigated no's by just like sheer dumb luck in a lot of cases too. That these things would happen. And I guess it's, in some ways, I guess you have to realize that maybe you did a couple things to put yourself in this position, but at the same time, it was really just sort of entropy as I fell through like these things like, whoa, and I bounced off this rock and I hit this career rock and I fall into that career rock, so I don't know.
I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more. Like
you don't want to give yourself too much credit. I mean, there are so many talented people that you bump into who just have the worst luck. The worst luck. The worst luck, and they are phenomenal. And you just can't believe like how good they are, and that they don't work.
They're not more than what they are. Absolutely. That's so funny because I remember the first job I ever booked was a Levi campaign, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was scouted, and when I worked at the gym, this guy was like, "Hey, you should get into acting and modeling." And so I went to my first casting. I got signed on with Seattle Models Guild in Seattle, and I went to a Levi's casting. And they were like, can you walk? And can you do this? And I had no idea what I was doing. And I did. And they went, perfect. You're perfect for this thing. And I got a campaign for Levi's. And I thought to myself for about 3 seconds, like, I should quit my job and just do this because this is great. And I didn't cast anything for like 20 other castings after that. But it was like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I went with it. And I just stayed positive with it. And every single time I got negated after that, and I got rejected for those, it was just that learning process that I could keep going and trying to make myself a little bit better. But it's the same thing. It's like every job that I went to, one of my favorite jobs with you was LifeWise for the insurance. And ironically, the kit I was supposed to ski on Snoqualmie Pass. And I remember my agent asked me, he goes, "Can you ski?" I go, "Yeah, I've skied since I was a kid. Like I used to do NASCAR and all this, and I used to ski, but I snowboard now." And they're like, "Well, you need to be able to ski." And I go, "I can ski. There's no problem." And you guys had rented the entire mountainside, and I was like, "This is awesome! Like I get to run this whole line down by myself." How many people ever have the opportunity to do that? But as I was up at the top, my son in the commercial comes up to me and he goes, "You got this." And it was kind of like one of those switches of like in life, you have to just kind of roll with it and you have to get on that train. And I have that, you're so optimistic. And I think that's why we click so well is like, I don't see the negative. It's just like, well, life is what it is, but we can make those lemons into lemonade, right? And even though you keep getting those Minute Maid checks, it's like being able to roll with it and have fun, but to have that trigger to remind yourself, like, you can't take life that seriously. And if you fall down this mountain, you fall down. But you know what? You can get back up, or you can get back on that chairlift and go right back up to the top, and let's rerun it again.
Yeah, that was a pretty hilarious shoot. And wasn't that actually that kid's line? Was
What
it?
was his line? I think it was, "You got
You
this."
got this. That was
Yes, you
literally his
got this.
line in the script, right? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
you got this.
We had that shoot on that mountain is generated almost. We had more footage from that than I think maybe anything else we'd ever done because we did have that whole mountain, and it was really tricky because somebody skis down a bit, and the shot is that you're in a line and somebody skis past you and then they ski and then the final position is at another actor further down the hill and you can't just tromp back up the hill and do
Yeah.
another take. You had to ski down, hit on the
Go
brake, right?
back up
So
and then hope that the weather was okay because it was foggy and it was like there were so many elements involved in that.
yeah. And we had so many of those shots set up so that, we get this one where you're grouped together and you do this move, but then we take the people above you, move them below, and then, get the other, we had logistically figured out the best way of utilizing the mountain to capture. But, then we're resetting cameras. We had to build, we had to take boards and build a platform. I mean,
We're on snow.
You can't put a tripod leg in and suddenly it just one of them drops 3 feet into the, so I mean that was crazy, but it wound up just generating so much footage. I remember when you were talking about doing your reel
Yeah.
and you asked me, "Hey, you've probably got a lot of footage of me. Is there some stuff you could forward to me?" And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, how about 45 minutes of you skiing? Yeah, I got a lot of footage of you.
I didn't fall
but,
though.
but yeah, it's like if I could bury your editor. Like I could like I could make the person who was doing that tape you regret.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's funny because you are a mentor to me, and you hit on something like the power of surrounding yourself around people who are better than you and have more skill set and have knowledge, and you have always done that for me. You've always been so giving with your time with me, and including today. And it's like I look up to you, Paul, and you are so funny and you're so influential, and it's like to be able to reach out to you and actually, and I think a lot of young kids miss out on this now, is about having people in an industry or something like that that they feel comfortable enough to be able to ask for help. You've always been that person, and like whether that was for a video reel or whether that was for a modeling reel, aka like a conglomerate of all these different shoots I've done or keynote speeches I've done, and you've always been there for me, and I am absolutely grateful, and I'm grateful to have you in my life, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. That's an awful huge load of really nice things to say.
What is the one thing that you would say to stay positive, and whether it is you're an actor or whether you want to get into
Yeah,
directing or
right. So
producing?
it's like
What is one thing that you would tell them or someone or yourself to not take it personally, to look at things objectively, like what is the one nugget that you would say, you got this?
With some sense of trying to be gainfully employed, live a life that is full, right? I mean, having a sense of humor, not letting it bother you, realizing that nobody really has all the answers. If all those people out there really did have all the answers, you wouldn't be in front of them now, right? I mean, everybody would be on their yachts in the south of France, but that's not the case, right?
Well, I love that you say that because I think that that hits home, and I want to really hit it with, you told me something one time about, especially when I got into when I wrote my book and when I got into speaking, I was like, how do you make something take off like virally? Like how do you make that? Because that's your job. Your job is to direct something, produce something, write something, create something that just takes off and everybody knows about it. And you told me, you said, if I knew the answer to that, everything I would do would be viral. And you don't. You don't, it's not in your control. And I've always taken that nugget that you told me, and I'm like, you know what? I got to roll with it. And if it takes off, it takes off, but it's out of my control. I can do the best that I can do. And that was a word of wisdom that I took from you that really impacted me for the last decade. Seriously, Paul. So, I mean, if that's one thing, that's something that you reached me and you made a difference in my life. So I appreciate that.
Imagine these different approaches. This is one of the things that really cracks me up about a lot of these digital media companies or folks who say, we'll make you go viral, or we have market research, or we take all this information, we crunch this data on stuff that's gone, and we've distilled it down into these 5 bullet points of virality. And it's like, yeah, good luck with that. It's like you will always be behind. You have no idea. Like you have no idea. You would probably be better off asking like some kids what would be the best, like 6-year-olds, or asking like a 9-year-old person who's like just retired from their lifetime of psychiatry. You would like, there are so many people out there who would be like, if you're not talking to people, interacting with people, and asking the right questions about connecting with people. I mean, there's so a lot of this stuff about today, where you've got numbers crunchers and computer and or they're using AI to distill the AI is just scraping a bunch of stuff, and now it's scraping answers from other AI, and you're getting into like, there are going to be some weird
regurgitated loops, creatures, right?
Yeah, right. Get ready for the AI talking to AI disaster fest that's coming our way in the next couple of years. Well, they realize that we have some tweaks. We may have come out of the box a little too early on this, right? It's like, it's still always going to be about that connection. I think you do touch on that in your book too. There's no question that you mention this connecting with people on mentorships and being face to face. And I think that that's you want the answers, then be curious.
Yeah,
right. Go.
I love
places,
that. If people are curious about you and learning more about you and your endeavors and like what your journey is going forward with, how can people find with you? How can people connect with you? How can you be that director that hires that next actor or model that you could give that chance to? Where can people find you now?
They can't find me, and they should not try to find me. That would be terrible. Don't look for me. And I won't look for them.
That's awesome.
We all, yeah.
Well, I think you should write a book, FYI. I love it.
I have just like pretty much down to like my 2 major large clients that I work for. And I'm just trying to sort of not work anymore, so that is sort of my plan.
Mhm.
So yeah, so no
Okay.
one should be,
No one can find Paul. But if
yeah.
you ever have the opportunity to meet this man in person, he can make you laugh and he can give you those nuggets. And you have done that, Paul. And you are making a difference in this world to me and to the people that I know and all of our connections that we have together. And it has been an absolute pleasure to have you in my life and for my family to be part of your family. And I miss you and I miss being in Seattle with you. And I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you so much for jumping on, sharing a few stories and a few nuggets and just reminiscing with me because you're such a rock star, Paul. Thank you very much.
Hey, well, thank you. It was a blast. And if you just want war stories, we can do like the war story podcast because obviously I've met tons of people, and but so I'm just glad that we were able to hang out before my brain started to go. So you got some of my best years. So thank God for
I love
that.
it. I had to remind you of
Yeah.
the donkey story. So
Well, that's just so horrible. I just wouldn't have thought the donkey story would have been, like,
I get the giggles. Your nugget to me has always been that you can't control those things and it's okay. So I love you and thank you for being on here with me. You made my day.
Okay, there's Star Wars. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see you.
Bye, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. We'd love your help to make it even better. So, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.